Hello everybody and welcome to episode 2, season 2 of the Three at the Back podcast. I'm your host Darren and again I'm joined by my buddies Scott and Paul. Today we are going to be talking about the assist kings of the Premier League. The guys that kind of set the goals up, might not always get the praise for the hard work they do. It's always that guy that's before the glory, before that moment where the ball goes into the back of the net. Obviously there are the odd one or two creators that do get held up on a pedestal, but there's a fair few below that level that don't necessarily get the plaudits that some of the top guys do. So we're going to have a little chat about them. We're going to predict who we think is going to be the best assist maker or the biggest, make the most assists throughout the season. I think obviously you probably know who we're all going to pick anyway. But we're going to have a little conversation around those people that might challenge, other people that we might have considered, stats-wise, who's on the same level, but maybe in a team that doesn't have like an out-and-out goal scorer. So that may obviously be affecting their returns and things of that nature. So let's start off by...
Should we just clear up
getting it out there.
Who's going to be the...
We absolutely all know. I think Kevin De Bruyne is...
Really?
Kevin De Bruyne is our top pick, right? Obviously, 3 out of the last 4 seasons he's been the assist leader. I think it was 20 assists last season. Don't think it's been any less than 16 or 17 assists in seasons previous. Obviously playing in a side with Raheem Sterling, Sergio Aguero, Gabriel Jesus helps massively.
Well, that's it. You can't be an assist king unless you've got the guy to put the ball in the net.
Yeah,
that's what it comes down to, isn't it?
Yeah. Man City they're one of the strongest teams in the league, and they're going to continue to be that. And Kevin is probably the best number 10 in the world. So
who was Golden Boot last season?
Jamie Vardy.
Jamie Vardy was last
season. Who was the guy supplying his bullets?
I think predominantly it was James Madison, wasn't it? Yeah.
Madison, Barnes, Tielemans, all chipping in with.
Yeah, it was kind of spread out.
Sure, yeah. Can you not go like 5 minutes without mentioning that boy's name?
No, I love him. He's the best.
Ben Chilwell. Yeah. So so, who else was up there in terms of the goal scoring ranks last season? Salah.
Yeah, Salah. So you start looking at Trent as being like a challenger for that title.
Yeah.
And then Aubameyang, really.
Yeah.
The top scorers. Ings at Southampton.
Who's
James Ward-Prowse, I imagine, got a fair few assists last season.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Who's the biggest creator in terms of obviously Aubameyang scoring 21 goals last year or 22 goals last year?
Yeah.
Who is the main driving force behind those pass before the goal, the assist?
Obviously, in years gone by, it would have been Ozil. Didn't have him last season.
The Invisible Man.
Man last season.
Not favoured by Arteta.
No.
Or any Arsenal manager, by the
So you're looking at the wings. You're looking at the wings for us. Obviously, I think Pepe chipped in with a fair few last season.
Yeah.
Although
I think he had like 5 or 6 assists. I think last season. Yeah.
And then I guess Saka from the left.
Yeah, Saka. I think
Saka from the left.
4. I think he finished the campaign with 4 assists.
And then this season I imagine we'd like to think Tierney will chip in, Bellingham will get a few.
Yeah.
From right back.
Almost Arteta trying to replicate that Guardiola style of the wing backs getting more involved.
Of course, I think anyone wants, the way that Liverpool and City play. I think every team wants to replicate that style of play, but you just have to have the players to execute that.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, Arsenal aren't on that level right now, but. I think that's probably why Liverpool and City are where they are.
Yeah, no, that's fair enough. Scotty, for yourself as a Palace fan, your biggest goal scorer last year, Jordan Ayew.
Yeah, Ayew.
13 goals, I think he finished the campaign with.
He scored 9 goals.
9 goals, okay.
He probably assisted himself for 5 of them. I mean, it's well documented. I think only Norwich scored fewer goals than we did last season. We just lack that creative player, which is why we signed Eze.
Yeah.
I'm still really concerned. We need a centre forward. We haven't that person. Ayew's not prolific. He's more an assist person than he is out striker. I think we've all given up on Benteke. We're not getting the Villa Benteke back anytime soon.
But Sorloth,
no
did he
talk.
come back and do the job?
I would give him a go, but all the chat is that we're going to flog him to Leipzig.
Right.
That's interesting.
No, they're
Because he had a really good. Cause it was 2 seasons he was in Turkey, wasn't it?
Well, he had 1 year last year. The second year was supposed to be this season coming, but
Right.
he scored 24 goals last season,
Yeah.
which shows that he can do it.
Yeah.
What I've seen of the fella, he's big and strong and really direct. He can probably suit Wilf and Eze and Ayew supplying. He's more a mobile sort of Benteke of yesteryear.
Because he's still quite important to the Norway side, even though
Very
they've got
important.
Haaland up front.
Yeah.
Where does the Turkish Super League though sit as a benchmark for coming in and being the main man at Palace?
Well, in terms of what we need, just someone to put the ball in the net. He scored 24 times in the highest division that Turkey can offer, in not a very good side.
Yeah.
Shows that he can do it.
It was Trabzonspor that it was at.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's not the Fenerbahçe's or Galatasaray's.
No,
of
he's
the world.
not playing for one of the favourable clubs out there.
They've got another lead striker, right? The name, the personnel evades me, but I'm pretty sure it's someone of an older player.
Ex-Leeds.
They've got the Trabzonspor. They've got another striker, right? Another main striker from memory.
I only kept hold of Sorloth because I think he has something to offer. So I'm sort of a bit perplexed that they gave him a 2-year loan deal away when we struggled for goals.
Yeah.
Doesn't make any sense.
I guess he came in with that reputation as being this, Norwegian wonder kids.
I mean, it's held on the same level as Haaland.
He had a bit of everything
Yeah.
about him.
Yeah.
And obviously he struggled to start with. I don't think it was all his fault. I don't think he really got the length of game time he needed.
He looked a bit one-dimensional.
Yeah.
He wasn't your fox in the box. He wasn't your battering ram. He was sort of in between the two. I think the style of play that we were trying to implement, we needed someone a bit more mobile.
Yeah.
But now we got Eze and Ayew.
So you think Eze will be your assist king?
I think
this
Eze's
season?
he's been brought to play in behind a striker. We haven't got a striker, so surely that must be in the pipeline. So eventually we'll sign someone in this week, hopefully.
Okay.
So,
Like I say, if you keep Wilf, maybe he'll be the guy. Maybe he'll be the guy behind.
Yeah, I mean,
And Eze behind.
Hodgson's a massive fan of Cenk Tosun.
I don't think it's any surprise that all three of us have got Kevin De Bruyne. I think you look at his statistics from last season, it was 4 key passes per game. I think for context as well, the second place player behind him in terms of the stat, and I know that statistics very rarely mean little in terms of what's actually happening on the pitch, but when you're averaging 4 key passes every single game, that allows you then to have those 18, 19, 20 assists every game.
It's not just that, it's the way City play. Possession game, he finds little pockets of space where he can work in. He's got Aguero, Jesus, Sterling to hit.
Yeah.
I mean, everything's there. I mean, if he isn't the assist king, then, you know.
Ultimately, he's creating the opportunities for these people, for these world-class players in front of him to put the ball in the back of the net. I think for context as well, the second place player for number of key passes last season was James Madison, only 2.5 key passes per game. And you look at where Leicester finished last season. They weren't also-rans by any stretch of the imagination. They finished 5th in the league last year. Jamie Vardy, the Golden Boot winner. So, it's a massive leap, isn't it? From second place, 2.5 key passes to someone like Kevin De Bruyne hitting 4 key passes every single game.
Wasn't it a fact as well that Madison didn't have an assist from January
onwards to the end of the season. Yeah, I didn't know that.
Didn't have a single assist.
So all of his assists came in the first half of the season.
But Vardy still kept banging the goals, and so someone was stepping up more. I think Barnes had a
So Harvey Barnes had quite a few assists. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of Tillemans as well. I mean, he's a quality player.
World class. Yeah.
He's a bit of an enigma, isn't he? Because from an FPL point of view, everyone thinks, don't put him in your team because he's a defensive midfielder, but he scores goals and assists. He's a bit of a...
He's more like your assist to the assist kind of guy.
Yeah.
It links it
I
really
think
well.
he'll link the pass to the guy that crosses it.
Yeah.
For the guy that Vardy
That's
taps
right,
it
yeah,
into.
yeah.
So he doesn't get the credit because he's not the final ball.
No, but that's what I'm saying.
He's
like,
the guy that reads the play
Yeah, so
first.
FPL is not a great score, but as a player, he's fantastic.
Yeah, he's
Yes, FPL is probably not a great benchmark for him in terms of because of how it awards points, but he does score goals, which obviously gets you points. He does make the assists, which gets you points. It just always feels a bit strange that everyone always seems to imagine him as this deep lying, like, centre defensive midfielder, when actually really he's for me he's more of a box to box.
Yeah.
I'd put him more as a deep line playmaker.
Mm-hmm.
I think he's more of like a Pirlo in style.
Mm-hmm.
He's there to get the ball, read the landscape of the pitch,
Just sits around the middle.
and then decide how the game is going to play.
Yeah.
I think he's the orchestra of Leicester's team.
Yeah.
He decides how it's going to be played.
Pulls the strings, yeah.
And if he decides that he needs to be the one that gets into the box, then he'll get into the box. But most of the time, I think he feels that he's the guy that's best to stand on the edge
Yeah.
and pick those passes out.
The great thing, obviously, is with Tielemans, he's got Ndidi as backup. So if he wants to push forward, he knows that Ndidi is going to sweep up behind him.
Yeah.
So in terms of, obviously,
Other players?
we've mentioned James Madison. James Madison, obviously, 2.5 key passes per game last season. He
Takes all the dead balls as well. Corners,
he
free kicks.
was the second most key passes per game behind Kevin De Bruyne. Was setting up Jamie Vardy a lot in the first half of the season, as you heard. Didn't make an assist from January onwards. Reasons for that? Maybe a switch up in system, maybe a switch up in roles of who had more responsibility, because obviously Harvey Barnes came through in the back end of that season as being a very prominent player for Leicester.
Madison was injured as well towards the end.
That's true.
Probably didn't help his stats. Barnes definitely stepped up, but he was getting lots of assists from out wide by Pereira and Chilwell, Pomon. And Vardy assists himself to a lot of goals made of his own creation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how the assists work on penalties.
Yeah.
Or who gets. Vardy wins a lot of penalties and puts them away, so you don't get the assist for that either.
Yeah.
So from an FPL point of view, the player that goes down, the player that wins the penalty
Gets the assist.
gets the assist.
Yeah.
But in terms of a statistical point of view, I'm not too sure how it works. I'm not too sure if they
It doesn't count.
runs the same rules.
It's a weird one. So if Vardy gets brought
Goes
down,
as a solo goal maybe or something like that. Yeah.
If he gets brought down in the box and converts the penalty, he doesn't get the assist and the goal.
And the goal. No, that's right. Just gets the goal. Yeah.
And the same as if a player knocks in a cross and it's handball that leads to a penalty, then they don't get the assist for that either.
That's correct. Yeah, which always seems a bit harsh to me.
So who do we think they're going to compete with Kevin for that top spot?
So, go on.
I mean, I think the obvious ones are obviously Trent Alexander-Arnold at Liverpool. Again, we're talking about top teams with top strikers.
Yeah.
He's the one that puts the balls in. You finished last season with 13 assists. So some way behind Kevin in a sense. But really, 7 assists across 38 games. He could realistically make up that gap throughout this next year.
Yeah, but let's be fair. The 20 assists that Kevin got last season was a record-breaking season.
That's true.
It's not going to get done again.
Broke on Reed's records.
Kevin's not going to get 20 assists this season.
No.
Well, you say that, I mean, records are made to be broken. He could do 21 this year, and the record gets broken again.
I don't see him breaking it again.
I feel like
I think City have to improve for him to break that again.
Of course, yeah, and I feel like where City play through him so much, obviously he gets the most opportunities. When you look at what Trent and Robertson did together, so as a combination, there was 25 assists between the two wing backs.
Yeah.
Whereas you compare that to the wing backs of Manchester City, and there's barely anything. So Kyle Walker and Mendy and the likes of. Like, they're not getting the same amount of assists as Trent and what Robertson are. So obviously it's different play styles. Like, I understand that, but between the two players, you're getting 25, whereas obviously De Bruyne is getting the 20, and then other players are picking up bits and pieces here. I think like Foden had 3 assists, and David Silva had I think 8 or 9 assists. So really, obviously, you can see that the play for Man City focuses through the middle, whereas Liverpool focus out wide.
De Bruyne's class. He's playing in the most congested part of the field, so he's got to work that little space for himself. Whereas Trent and Robertson have the space already made
space
for
and the
them.
time, yeah, true.
I mean, Kev's having to do it himself, playing in split-second decisions, and his vision. Some of those balls he plays in, little spins he puts on the back spins. The guy's a genius.
Yeah. So you talk about, from a statistical point of view, you could argue that actually Andrew Robertson is better than Trent in a lot of ways. And I say that because obviously 12 assists last year, so only 1 less. but his key passes per game and his pass completion rate, so his key passes was lower, so it just means that the balls that he was putting in weren't creating the same amount
But
of
that's
chances.
obvious. If you watch Trent play, I mean, Trent's one of the best crosses of a ball I've ever seen. His accuracy and the way he whips it in, and
the thing with Trent, he takes a lot of set pieces
takes
for
the
Liverpool.
set
So
plays.
that's going to hit. He's going to create more chances in itself by just doing that.
And that shows in the stats because obviously Robertson's pass completion is far higher than Trent's.
Yeah.
So his Robertson's pass completion is 84, 85%.
But he's probably playing safer balls inside.
Which is fair enough, but he's only got one less. He only had one less assist than Trent.
Yeah.
So if he continues to play that way and he gets a little bit of luck and maybe Mane finishes a bit better or Salah finishes a bit better or Firmino starts chipping in with goals or whatever, do we start looking at Robertson as kind of the better player or?
No.
Do you start thinking that Robertson is maybe in the shadow of Trent a little bit?
If you watch Liverpool play, the amount of times that Trent will create a space down his flank and switch it with a beautiful 60-yard crossfield to Robertson who's in space.
Yeah.
Robertson can't do that for Trent.
Yeah.
If you watch how Liverpool play, it all comes down the right-hand side. He switches the play to the other flank where Robertson's in acres of space. Then he'll whip it in for the assist.
Yeah.
That's all down to Trent's vision, and the fact he's an awesome ball player.
So Trent last season played 5.1 long balls per game. Robertson played 0.7. So that tells its own story.
That's a difference.
So Trent's got that ability to switch the flank, like you just said, and then Robertson's getting that shorter ball in on the near post or whatever.
I think the fact that Trent is more pivotal to that. I think they can replace Robertson tomorrow. The Greek lad they bought to create competition for him. I would imagine if that Greek lad is as good as Liverpool think he is, if they put him in. I would imagine he would get similar level of assists based on what Trent provides Liverpool.
Trent's that good. He can play in the middle.
Yeah.
He's a midfielder basically, playing as a right back.
I guess
There's a lot of people that have suggested that he should convert and maybe play in that centre mid role.
He's got the legs to do it. He's got the passing ability.
I guess the difficulty is can these two guys continue providing that level? Because it's fairly unheard of wing backs to get the level of assists that these two guys got last season. So it's really whether these guys can consistently.
But that's 2 seasons running they've done it.
Of course. But like I say, now they're title winners.
Both seasons where Liverpool should have and probably should have won the title. They were by far the most dominant force. It was only for the fact that Man City the season before last were that much on their level.
It's the way Liverpool play. So they don't play with wingers. So Salah's cutting inside. Defenders have been drawn with Salah. Yeah, but the fact that Salah drifts in creates that lanes either side. So you've got Mane doing it on one side, Salah on the other. Gives the lanes for Trent and Robertson to feed into. But Doherty had lots of assists last season because Traore was playing a similar role to what Salah does, and cutting and giving all that space down the flank to move into.
Yeah. So I think both of those guys will probably still be up there this season.
Whether
they can top. Yeah. I think Trent definitely.
Robertson maybe not so much, or do you still think double figures for Robertson as well?
I would like to think so, based on the how Liverpool play.
Yeah,
he will do. But I think Trent will run Kevin closer this year.
So
if Trent can carry on.
When we talk about like from a stats perspective, for me, obviously that's a big part of my research. It's a big part of why I pick the players that I pick. Obviously, I understand that stats don't always play out on the pitch. In fact, they very rarely do. But in terms of
more a guide than a fact, aren't they?
Yeah, of course. But when we talk about that in terms of who is doing the same role, who's doing the jobs, who's pass completion, who's putting those key balls in. Luca Digne at Everton, he matched Trent Alexander-Arnold in every single statistical area apart from
the key one.
apart from number of stats, which
Number of assists, yeah.
number of assists. Sorry, which you could put down to the fact that Calvert-Lewin, Richarlison, they're just not up to. Maybe they've not put the ball in the back of the net when they should have, etc., etc. But pass completion, number of crosses, number of key passes per game.
But that's the difference. We know Lucas Digne's no slouch. He's come from PSG, a top club.
Yeah.
He didn't quite cut it there, but he's on to. There's no doubt that Lucas
it,
Digne, if he had the
Barca?
Salahs, the Manes of the world up front for him, he would get similar levels.
It was PSG and then Barca and then Everton, or was it Barca, PSG, and then
He come from the Barca.
through the Barca academy, PSG, and then back to it? Okay, fine.
Yeah. So there's no doubt that if Lucas Digne had someone to put the ball in the back of the net on a regular basis, he'd be up there. No doubt, based on his ability. So
let's put him in that Liverpool side, on that left hand side where Robertson plays.
You get exactly the same numbers.
He's getting 12, 13, 14 assists as opposed to 7 or 8.
I'd have no doubt that Lucas Digne is on level with Robertson from player to player.
So if you chuck in Chilwell in that position, playing for Liverpool,
Yeah, again.
more?
Well,
He does a quality ball in.
Chilwell finished with
I think
with 6 assists last season.
I think you're splitting hairs. Those type of players, I think you're splitting. They're all similar world class
But
quality.
there's a big talk about Robertson coming from Hull, who got relegated. Liverpool going, we recruited from
Of course,
lower teams. If you put a quality player, proven quality player in there, Chilwell,
Luca Digne.
Yeah, but
Digne.
all these guys have had to do the same thing, though, right? They've all had to earn their stripes in some way, shape, or
But
form.
do you think that Robertson looks slightly better than his? I saw him play for Scotland the other night, and he looked bang average.
Yeah.
But that's what I mean. I think he got signed because he very much stood out.
Energy, isn't he?
His energy and his ability very much stood out in a whole side that was struggling.
Mm-hmm.
They've brought him into a Liverpool side and moulded him into what he is now. Can he improve on what he? I imagine he's at his peak. I can't imagine he's going to get better. Whereas I see Trent as someone who could definitely get better. Yeah. Whereas I feel Andy Robertson's at his level. I look at Tierney for us. I would say they're on similar levels, some similar abilities, and I look at Tierney and think he could probably improve. Maybe based a slight bias and based on his age.
So going back to our previous episode, we all of us had Everton in our top 10 as a variation, sort of 9th, 8th, 7th, whatever. Luca Digne, I imagine, was probably a key part of that. Maybe finding a striker that's going to put the ball in the back of the net is a key part of that also. Calvert-Lewin looked a different player post-lockdown under Carlo Ancelotti, scoring a lot of goals, making a lot of decent movements, and looked like a very good player. Obviously, he's earned himself an England call-up. With that in mind, going into this season, is there going to be a better partnership between Digne and Calvert-Lewin? And do you feel like Calvert-Lewin could put the ball in the back of the net more often this year, giving Luca Digne that validation as a good wing back?
I guess my issue is how often is Everton going to be the team that's on the front foot?
I mean, on paper, they've got a team that should be dominating most of the bottom 10, right?
You think so? But we've always, Everton over the last few seasons have underperformed versus what they've spent on the players that they've got, etc., etc. So I guess my feeling is Ancelotti will play to a safe level, where he feels that he can get the performances out of them and not take risk in losing games. And Lucas Digne bombing onto an Andy Robertson point of view and kind of disregarding defensively his job, I don't think will happen. I don't. Trent and Robertson kind of slightly get free rein, that they can attack more than they need to.
It's a dual attack, isn't it? A lot of teams, like Everton, for example, play Digne, Coleman's on the right hand side. He's not offering that same threat that Trent does for Liverpool. So teams can almost shepherd Digne,
just mark Digne out of the game,
nullify him because they're not having that threat on the other side. Whereas, like we said about Trent, he can switch the play real quick, and Robertson then becomes a threat just because he's tiptoed into space because everyone's been sucked onto one side. So
yeah, agreed.
So other considerations for you boys.
Bruno Fernandez got to be considered.
Fernandez at Man United.
Yeah, he's come in and he's the missing piece of the jigsaw for United.
He's up there for me, competing with Kevin. You know, he got 7 assists out of 14 games in January. I think he's improved them immensely. He's clearly their main focal point for their attack. And I think he'll continue to be.
And United have got weapons, haven't they, for him to hit? Greenwood, Martial, Rashford.
They've got a lot of pace, and obviously, again, bringing in Donny van de Beek, I guess, eases pressure off Fernandez that he's the sole guy to provide the assist. I think Donny will provide assists himself.
What do we think that means for Paul Pogba in terms of his role within that squad? He's not going to be Is he going to be a starting man still with Donny van de Beek and Bruno Fernandez in there?
I can't see it. I think Pogba's time's up.
I don't think there's any guarantee. I think if Solskjaer's looking at what's best for Man United and what's best for how the team plays, I don't see where Pogba fits. I can, Donny van de Beek and Bruno Fernandez are similar players, so they're going to play similar positions. So one will play number 10, I imagine, and one will play that box-to-box role. Yeah. And then again, Pogba fits in there. They're always going to have a deep player that's going to sit there and defend. So a Matic or someone similar.
If you want to recruit someone that money they've spent, Pogba's your man to offload.
So I find it a struggle where he fits in, and based on what he earns and based on his market value, I struggle to see what he contributes. I guess for Man United as a whole.
Yeah. Because it's obviously he was one of the key figures in the reason why. Well, certainly Mourinho puts him down as a key figure as to why his play style and the reason why it didn't work at Manchester United for him is because Pogba was the kind of the big voice in the dressing room and kind of seemed to control and manipulate everything, but at the same time wasn't then producing on the field in a manner that he expected.
I struggle with Pogba.
It'd be interesting to see what Man United fans have to say about it, to be honest. It'd be interesting to get their opinion on how they think it works. But, for me, Donny van de Beek isn't brought in to compete with Bruno Fernandez. That he's been brought in to play with Bruno Fernandez. So, therefore, that does kind of leave Pogba in limbo, unless Man United fans see differently. But to play all three of them, it seems very expansive and very open.
Yeah. How would
unless Pogba is going to sit deep and be that really deep guy that's going to.
How would it necessarily work? I mean, let's say 4-3-3. So you've got a 3-man central midfield, and then you've got the likes of Daniel James and Igalo and the likes of up front.
I don't think James is getting a sniff, is he? In that team?
No. I imagine he'll go out on loan if.
Yeah.
I can't see him getting the game.
It'd be Martial, Greenwood, Rashford, Van der Beek sitting in behind, Matic and Bruno. No room for Pogba in that team. And you can't have him on the bench because of what he earns. His value, I can only see one option. That's to sell.
To sell him, yeah. So you guys wouldn't be at all surprised to see him move to a PSG
go back to Juve. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if he moved back to
Juventus. Yeah, okay, fair enough.
I think the pace of Italian football suits him. It's slower. He can show pony all he likes and look the $1 million.
Pogba and Ronaldo in the same dressing room.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I guess getting rid of him would maybe mean they can actually spend the money that Dortmund want on Jadon Sancho. Because they're not going to let go for him so they get the money they want.
Yeah.
They clearly want a standout wide player, whether that be him, whether that be Kingsley Coman, whoever it is, it's going to cost them money.
That might be what the plan is.
So they clearly need.
Sell Pogba and then get Sancho in for the 110 million that Dortmund are demanding.
They need to get rid of somebody to afford that. Otherwise, they wouldn't be bartering over it, would they?
Pogba's always going to be your man as well. If you want to raise funds,
PSG would take him. I'd imagine.
So
any.
As as Dortmund fans all together, we all support different teams here in this country, but we've all got something in common as Dortmund fans. Pogba on a part exchange for Sancho? Be hard to deal because obviously his wages is very unrealistic. I understand that, but as Dortmund fans,
plus he's not English. And he's not under 20.
And he's not Jadon Sancho.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Yeah. Nah.
Jude Bellingham's a lot better anyway.
To be honest, the fact that Jude Bellingham's gone in there, clicked, Jadon Sancho's clearly been a key part, or had some part in that transfer, making him feel at home, etc. Jadon Sancho doesn't look like he wants to leave.
Doesn't.
No.
Made no noises to get out.
He's made no noises. He wouldn't have signed a 4-year contract last year if that was the case.
Man United are Man United, so if they want you, your ears are always going to prick up.
Yeah.
But he isn't going to go against the team that's given him that opportunity to shine in the first place.
I agree.
I think that's what he's realised.
Yeah, I agree.
Dortmund have given him that opportunity to step forward and show what he's made of.
Yeah.
So Dortmund have said we want 100+ million or whatever it is.
Well, I think
Man United have said we're not willing to pay that. So
I think that was a really key.
Job done.
I think what's happened there, and I know we're getting a little bit off track here with regards to what this episode is about, but regards what Dortmund have done with Sancho, I think that's actually led on to the fact that they were able to capture Haaland, they got Bellingham, and now Reina from Real Madrid.
Well,
and they're all citing the fact that Dortmund give young players the opportunity.
Yeah. And let's be honest, maybe it does link to this, because if Jadon Sancho was in the Premier League, he'd be up there as one of the assist kings.
Yeah,
that's very true. It's very true.
If he played for Man United, all of a sudden the assist king conversation changes, and Jadon Sancho has got to be considered.
Right up there.
So if Sancho signs for United tomorrow, does that change your perspective on
our league positions?
On league positions, does it change your ideas on Kevin De Bruyne being your number one?
I don't think it changes in regards to league positions, because it's still very tight. Although Jadon would make them, a lot closer. I still think it's very, the top two will be
very
the top
much
two,
Liverpool and City.
It'll still be very tight, but I do think. You can't lie with the statistics. Jadon at such a young age has still had to go do it, even though the Bundesliga is a weaker league to the Premier League. He still plays for one of the top teams. The expectancy is still there that he performs, and double figures worth of goals and double figures worth of assists 2 seasons running.
Yeah.
Last season, I watched Dortmund sometimes and thought, Jadon Sancho's been a bit poor today. But then I look at his statistics, and he had his best season statistically.
Yeah.
In a Dortmund shirt last season.
That's very true. Right, guys, listen, I think it was fairly obvious who we were all going to choose from minute one of this episode. We've tried to include other people, other names into that may challenge Kevin De Bruyne for that, though it seems unlikely. Let us know down in the comments. Do you think Trent is going to challenge this year? Do you think he's capable of getting to that 17, 18, 19 mark? See, Paul pointed out that Kevin De Bruyne's 20 assists last year is a record. So, does Kevin De Bruyne now come down to that 17, 18, 19 mark himself? Let's have a conversation down in the comments. And, we'd love to get your ideas on who you think is going to be the assist king for the 2020-21 season. Thank you very much for listening, and goodbye.